nobody's going to buy high on him.
Yeah,
Nobody's
who's
actually
going
going
to
to
trade
buy.
for him? Like, not many people are going to trade for him.
Right.
If you're sitting there, just like, oh, he's the running back 2 on the season, and you're trying to trade, no one's gonna buy
No
that.
one's going to actually pay running back 1, wide receiver 1 prices for him.
We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Week 5 trade targets, buy, sell, guys we should be higher on or lower on than our opponents, and how we can take advantage. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, first off, thanks for being here. But if you didn't know, our show is on all major podcast platforms. So if you get a chance, leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Toss me a follow over on Spotify. It would mean the absolute world. But bringing back in our weekly guest, co-owner of Footballguys, Sigmund Bloom. Week 5, Sig. We've gotten everything 100% right so far, right?
No, I think that it continues to be disorienting. It felt like a lurch, like the floor just moved or tilted in a way that it hadn't. We thought we were getting the stuff triangulated with 3 data points through week 3. Some of the stuff we got reinforced that. Some of the stuff made us have to go back and start over in our analysis. But that's why we love it. That's what keeps us coming back.
It's a good time of year because now, like you said, we have a few weeks to kind of decipher if we were really just terribly wrong, or if there's a couple decisions, I guess, that we could have done it a little bit differently. I think there's a couple different situations that we're going to talk about today that I definitely was wrong about, and we'll get there. We'll save that one maybe until the end, so make sure you guys stick around for the person that you guys are all going to want to talk about, I would imagine, Cordarrelle Patterson. So we'll get Sig's take on him, but let's start with someone else that we talked about extensively last week with Matt Harmon, because I was really curious how Odell Beckham was looking coming off of this injury. Finally, we get him back in the lineup last week, and then Baker just misses him on a deep ball, Sig. So what are we thinking? Should we be trading for Odell after what we've seen so far? Or are we a little bit nervous now that basically if Baker can't get it to him, they can't get on the same page? Maybe it's just fool's gold with him as well.
That's fair. I mean, that's the thing. What's the lead? The lead is that Odell Beckham easily got deep for what should have been the game-clinching touchdown, or the lead is that Baker Mayfield didn't hit him, and Baker Mayfield actually had one of his worst games as a pro. And there's all kinds of conversations here, Joe, about is he going to get his extension? Is he really the quarterback of the future for this team? And so on and so forth. But look, Odell Beckham looks like Odell Beckham, okay? And he's not quite Randy Moss, but when he's on, it really doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. I think he's a player that's going to create opportunities, especially with this offense, which is designed to create opportunities in play action passing. So I'll take my chances with him. And, of course, this weekend, maybe a little bit rough against Brandon Staley and the Chargers. Wow. I love what he's doing there. But overall, so maybe it's a buy low. Maybe you wait a week to see if the price gets even lower. He's going to be close to droppable if he has another game. I mean, in some people's eyes. And that's the thing, is you're just gauging that negative psychology. And I think there probably is a decent amount about Odell this week.
Yeah, he's a guy that it's unfortunate because he's been someone that's kind of lived off of efficiency for a while at times, but we thought there would be a decent opportunity for him to just jump headfirst into a lot of this volume, and then we see these like high equity targets go down the field. Like, you miss one of those, it completely changes how you feel about the player. So it does feel like a situation where if you were trying to trade for Odell, that it would make some sense off of a week like this when everyone wants to talk about Baker Mayfield. And this team, I mean, we know how they want to win. It isn't necessarily by airing the ball out anyway. So I can see both sides of it. I do think that Odell, just I guess going off of kind of what Harmon was saying, he looks healthy, and that's the positive thing. So I think that if you still did want to buy in on Odell, it's not too late to do that. This next one, I'm a little bit nervous about, but is he going to get healthy? We will find out, I suppose. But what are we doing with Carson Wentz? Is he someone that in like a 2-quarterback league that we should kind of have on our radar? Is it like kind of affecting this entire offense? I think Carson Wentz is one that I don't even know really what to do with him at this point.
Well, he's getting healthier, and he's playing better, and the offense looked better. But here's why I'm thinking this is a time to trade for Carson Wentz. He plays in the AFC South. So you're going to have Houston, Indy facing Jacksonville, facing Tennessee. So this week against Baltimore, again, it isn't urgent because Baltimore is not a pushover defense. But if Carson Wentz gets healthier, T.Y. Hilton's going to be back at some point, I believe, which is going to give them a vertical element. And that's the thing. This offense has lacked a vertical element. But Jonathan Taylor looks good. No worries about the knee issue that put him on the injury report. You have individual contributions from guys. 1 week it's Mo Ali Cox, 1 week it's Zach Pascal. Michael Pittman is breaking out, We're just not noticing it because he's getting tackled at the 1, or Wentz 2 weeks ago just missed him in the end zone. So I think that we're going to start to look at this team differently, as it was we already are, Joe, where they go into the week 0-3. 0-4 is kind of a death knell in the NFL, but they're not 0-4. Not just that, Tennessee lost to the Jets. So It's a new season. It's a new life. 2 weeks ago when Wentz got hurt, Joe, we're thinking, oh boy, Indianapolis, is Philadelphia going to get their first round pick? How many games are they going to lose? And now right back in playoff contention, and it's going to be a good yardstick game against Baltimore.
Yeah, I guess in terms of Wentz, his completion percentage above expectation, one of those efficiency metrics that we lean on pretty heavily, he was 4th in the entire league last week. So like you said, he does look better, and the efficiency is something that I would look to first. And then if we can get a little bit of mobility back, you mentioned Pittman, another player that we're thinking about completely differently if he doesn't get tackled at the 1 last week. So I definitely don't mind going back to Wentz, for all the reasons that we were on him late in drafts, going into the season, the schedule is going to be something that is going to be extremely nice just because of the division that he plays in. So we'll see if he can kind of put 2 games back to back and see if we can get there. This next guy, Sig, JD McKissic. So I was definitely pretty active on Gibson most of the offseason just because of we were hoping he would get that passing game role or at least a large share of it. And then we see Gibson just completely just eat into this pretty consistently now. And I mean, 7 rush attempts from McKissic, not the best, but if you're going to get 5 catches through the air and still have that equity on the touchdown side of things, in the most important areas of the field, I think that McKissic is at least interesting. Is he a guy you're trading for at this point?
Yeah, and he's just a buy low in a sense that hopefully you can get him for a song. You can get him as a throw-in right now. But there are some different things converging here. I'll start with this. Last night watching Austin Ekeler, I noticed in social media a lot of people saying, wow, Austin Ekeler isn't just a scat back. He's not just a water bug. He's a tough inside runner. He's a great athlete. Austin Ekeler was never – the Chargers never intended to make Ekeler foundational in their offense. He just forced them to. He went against type. He went against his body type. And I think that J.D. McKissic – look, I'm not saying that J.D. McKissic's going to take over. But I think that J.D. McKissic's body type is concealing how good of a football player he is. Mm-hmm. I just want folks to go back and watch his touchdown last week where you see his speed, you see his explosiveness, and you just see that toughness. He's hungry. That's the thing about the undrafted guys. You see the hunger in their game. Now let's talk about some situational factors. Washington's pass defense is horrible. It is bad. There ain't going to be many games where they're going to be salting away a 10, 14, 17-point lead in the fourth quarter with Antonio Gibson. Okay?
It's true.
There's going to be a lot of shootouts. There's going to be a lot of games where they need to pass. This is why this is a Taylor Heineke take too. This is a Terry McLaurin take. Love the game that Heineke played. I know it was Atlanta, but still love the game he played last week. Anyway, so McKissic's going to have plenty of opportunities, and he's a good football player. And that's important both because it's going to keep him on the field for that 35, 40, 45% of snaps. But when he gets opportunities, we're seeing it, Joe. He's converting them. So I just think that we could easily see him every year. It's like a revolving door. And I know last year it was because of the dump offs. Last year it was because of captain checkdown. But this year it could be because of the defense. And it could be because McKissic is becoming better and better every year we see him.
Yeah, he's one of those guys in DFS that no one really likes to click just because it doesn't really have the perceived upside. But you said it, if game script is just significantly in his favor more weeks than not, he's still one of those guys that makes a ton of sense to buy low on from a DFS perspective as well. So this next guy that we're going to talk about is someone that I feel like we've talked about every week, but trying to figure out this Falcons offense, it just keeps going to Cordarrelle Patterson. But let's talk about Kyle Pitts before we get there, because it seems like, there's ways, if we want to talk about the usage, it could be better in some ways. Matt Ryan, I guess, showing a little bit of life, but then Kyle Pitts not getting in the end zone again. What do we do with them?
It's just a reminder. I get questions from people, why should I drop him in my fantasy league? And first of all, he has immense ability. Still, in terms of pure ability, the best tight end in the league. It's just untapped right now. And I've noticed last week, Joe, watching, Trevor Lawrence can't read zone, but Trevor Lawrence was starting to run more. He had an improvisational play. Zach Wilson, and some of it's Tennessee's defense, don't get me wrong, but still, Zach Wilson, look, the rookies are getting a little more comfortable. And I wonder if that something like that, hitting cruising altitude, could happen for Kyle Pitts. I think you're seeing Matt Ryan playing better. Cordarrelle Patterson, who we're going to talk about, could open up some opportunities for him. I just think don't give up. Don't sell low. I get it if you have Dalton Schultz or Dawson Knox and you're thinking, am I going to start them over Kyle Pitts this week? Yeah, maybe you are. All right. But just take a temperature check if you don't have Kyle Pitts to see if you can get him, because when he hits a stride, and it might not be until next year, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, not enough of these like pure athletes at the tight end position that we know at some point there's going to be a ceiling there. So I'm with you on Kyle Pitts. Still holding if I have him, and I guess still kind of taking temperature of the owners that have him to see if they're kind of fed up at this point. I think that's a nice little buy low spot for him. But Cordarrelle Patterson, this one is so. It goes against everything that I believe in when it comes to DFS and trying to like project volume and those sort of things. But I guess there's something to be said for a guy that every time he's on the field, he's almost like a big part of what they're trying to do, right? They're actively trying to scheme him plays and get the balls into his hands. And we haven't really seen anyone do that with Cordarrelle Patterson before. We know that the talent's been there. He's 30 years old. Like, he still have enough juice left to keep this going? Or are we going to try and package him together to get another asset? I guess what do we do with him? We're trading for, trade away. I'm kind of a believer, but I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, that's exactly why I put him on here, Joe, is because it's not obvious whether he's a buy high or a sell high. I think he's a buy high. And what I mean by that is everybody wants to sell high. Okay, everybody's looking at Cordarrelle Patterson. Nobody's going to buy high on him. Nobody's
who's
going to
trade for him. Like, not many people are going to trade for him. If you're sitting there, just like, oh, he's the running back 2 on the season, and you're trying to trade, no one's going to buy.
No one's going to actually pay running back 1, wide receiver 1 prices for him. And like you said, production begets more opportunity. And the thing is, and it might just be Arthur Smith's not an offensive genius, but Arthur Smith also is pretty straightforward about utilizing what he has. That's another reason to like Kyle Pitts down the line. Unfortunately, Matt Ryan's limitations are keeping Calvin Ridley from being used to his fullest potential, but we are seeing Cordarrelle Patterson use his fullest potential. And Joe, they told me you can't just manufacture touches for players in the NFL. That's why Cordarrelle Patterson bounced around. His first year in Minnesota, they were running him on just plain old sweeps and things like that. He was making things happen. And I think it really took Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick's interest for the league to say, wait a second, maybe there's still something here. Look, last week we saw him win with route running on a busted coverage. We saw him win on a 50-50 ball. We saw him win with running back skills after the catch. And why would they go away from him? I mean, he's obviously an every week start going forward. It's the Jets this week. You know, the momentum's going to continue. I think that there's people out there that believe they're going to be clever and sell high on Cordarrelle Patterson, when really, like you said, get on board, be a believer, because we always knew he had this in him. There was just not the will to give him the opportunity to show it.
Yeah, if you made it this far in the video, I want to know in the comments right now, are you trading away Cordarrelle Patterson, or are you holding if you have him? I think that's like the main decision if you want to hold through this. I think you should, personally, because it gives you so much flexibility. It's not often that we see these wide receiver, like, let's think about him as a wide receiver for a second. Let's like, I guess, take a second to not think of him as a running back, because the volume, like, if you have a wide receiver getting 5 or 6 targets a game in the high equity or areas of the field, and also is going to add 6 to 10 rush attempts, like, the floor that you get from a player like that in fantasy is so high that I don't know if there's like a lot of risk to holding on to Cordarrelle Patterson. Sure, he's not going to have 3 touchdowns every game, but if you know that they're actively trying to give him those opportunities, I hate that people are just like, oh, he took away from Mike Davis last week. Mike Davis isn't getting a fade in the end zone, so like, why are we even talking about that? So I don't know. These are the kind of players that they kind of break the mold of traditional fantasy, so it's maybe a harder guy to trade than you would even think. So for me, I think it's a hold, or you try and go out there and you poke around and see if that owner would be willing to kind of give it away for a little bit of a lower price than you value him at. So I'm on board, man. Anything else on Patterson? I think it's a very interesting conversation to have. For sure.
Well, it's just that the other thing we'll add here, like we did with McKissic, is situational opportunity. This is not a team that's going to be running the ball 30 times a game. This is not a team that's going to be nursing leads. And what's working is working. The only real potential folly here is if Felipe Franks takes over at some point. And that's a November, December discussion. But yeah, I just think that if you follow Patterson all the way back to his college years, we're going to watch a similar story unfold with Kadarius Tony, but it actually looks like the Giants are willing to use him as a wide receiver, and then he shows his run after catch ability with lots of opportunities on short passes. So Kadarius Tony is a very interesting one this weekend against Dallas. If Sterling Shepard can't go, so maybe we're evolving. Hey, even Tavon Austin was out there. Austin
That's
and
true.
Cordarrelle Patterson,
another guy that if he
class.
came into the league like now he'd be a guy that'd be like a huge guy that people would be all over just because of his skill set.
Right. And then that makes me want to talk about Urban Meyer, so we should just end this piece right now.
Agreed. But before we go, Sig, want to remind everyone that I give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here next to see what I pulled from the Week 5 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.